And I would like to begin by just centering around our Project Arise Teens aim. We are really aiming to empower educators to elevate inclusive and effective literacy instruction for every single one of our learners. And today's workshop is really one step in that direction. Next slide. I would like to introduce today's facilitator from the Center for Whole Child Education. Jasmine, would you please take over and introduce yourself?
Thank you so much, Julie. Julie, I love saying your name. Hi, everybody. Happy afternoon, after school time. You are in a school building today. I'm sure you have lived so many lives and done so many things. We're so happy that you are with us today. I'm Jasmine Hernandez-Lovezo. I'm beaming into you from Sacramento, California. I was a lower elementary teacher, coach, administrator, and now a lower elementary parent, actually, I guess. I am here with my incredible colleague, Gretchen Livesey. She will be in the chat, putting you in breakout rooms, sharing resources, and she is an expert in all things secondary. So together, we're the full spectrum, TK to 12 plus. I'm happy to be here with all of you today. She is beaming in from San Jose. So we've got some Northern California people here. Let's jump right into today's workshop. This is what our outcomes will be. We're really focusing on those holistic skills that students need to read. We're going to talk about executive functions, examine what the research says about the role in literacy development, and then we're going to be in breakout rooms, look at some tools, and plan to observe and analyze one or more of your students to better support their literacy. So let's jump right in. And thank you to those who have your camera on. I love seeing you wherever you're beaming in from. So stop and jot. Bring to mind 1, 2, 3 specific students whose literacy you are working to support. Write those down on a note on your phone, on a sticky note on your desk or on your desktop. And if you're not in the classroom right now, maybe 1 to 2 students that you remember working with closely. Give me a thumbs up when you've got those students in mind. You can do it with a little reaction or with your action plan. Great, got them. Okay, please share in the chat before we start. What are the skills that students need to read? Think of all skills that they might need to read. Feel free to put those in the chat. What are the skills that students need to read? And I have a follow-up question as well. Here's my follow-up question. What are all the skills students need to be successful at school? So first we zoomed in on reading, now zooming out. Alphabetic principle, oral language, problem solving. So there are a number of critical skills that students need to build as they learn to read. Phonological and phonemic awareness, phonics, word recognition, decoding, fluency, all those things we see in Scarborough's rope in the science of reading. I know so many of us are learning about that now. But we know that students' learning isn't academic or social and emotional. Students become increasingly capable of complex skills like literacy through the integration of their cognitive, their social, and their emotional development. So when we consider all the skills students need to read, we need to think across all of the domains. So I see self-efficacy, confidence. So all of the skills they need to be successful in school, not just academic skills, but also habits, attitude, so many things. not just one or the other. And if you're just joining us, come right in. If you would like, we would love to see your beautiful face wherever you're beaming in from. And we're just getting started discussing what are the skills that our students need to be successful in school. Okay, so on the screen, you see the building blocks for learning. Building blocks for learning is this framework that we have at the center for the development of skills that children need to be successful in school and beyond. So they're research-based, and I want you to take a look closely at these. And are there any of the skills that you mentioned from the slide before that you see here on the building blocks? Skills that students need to be successful readers, be successful in school. Do you see any of these up here? I saw someone say confidence and self-efficacy. You see that here in the center on that dark turquoise row. Stress management and self-regulation. Those aren't always skills that come up when we're talking about students' literacy, but all skills that we need. So we're going to zoom in on one of these blocks, executive functions. But before we do, I want to note that all of these skills that you see on the screen are integrated and interdependent, and students need not just in school, but for lifelong learning. So zooming in on executive function, we see here in the second, and what their role is in literacy. But before we do that, what are executive functions? So executive functions are these skills, and they act like the brain's air traffic control system. They help us manage information, avoid distractions, and adapt in the moment to achieve our goals. Things that our students need, things that we all need, and we're all doing at work every day. Avoiding your phone that's beeping or that little email thing that pings on the bottom of your computer all day long. We need our executive functions always. So the core executive functions are inhibitory control, working memory, and cognitive flexibility. And these build to create more complex skills like problem solving, reasoning, planning, organizing, and self-monitoring. First, here, inhibitory control. It's one of the core executive functions, and it involves being able to control one's attention, our behavior, our thoughts, and our emotions to override this strong internal predisposition or external allure, and instead do what's more appropriate or needed. So without this control, we would be at the mercy of our impulses, old habits of thought or action, these conditioned responses that we have, and or all of the stimuli in our environment that pull us this way or that way. Inhibitory control makes it possible for us to change and for us to choose how we react and how we behave, rather than being this unthinking creatures of habit. This is sometimes called self-control, delayed gratification, interference control, all words for the same thing. So what might this look like for a student? What could this look like for a student? Feel free to come off of mute or put it in the chat. Those of us that have worked with younger children, this is still developing in them. Things like, I have to go potty. This is boring. I don't like this. Is my mommy coming? Those kinds of things that we just blurt out. Some of the things that we, as adults and older kids know, oh, I can't do that. I can't just shout out or blurt out what I'm thinking. Yeah, absolutely, Eve. The social norms of the setting. Understanding expectations, absolutely. Meaningful, yep, that word. Purpose, sense of purpose, absolutely. Oh, yes, this one. that the mind has wandered and need to reread the sentence. Gretchen, I saw you come off mute.
Yeah, I was thinking about a couple of barriers that I created for some of my high school students. They look like little tiny, almost like library carols. And when they were really having trouble concentrating or not getting distracted by things around them, they would ask for one of those and be able to like go inside. And it's a scaffold for building inhibitory control, which I have, of course, also admitted in the chat is still something I'm working on, my inhibitory control.
Thanks for sharing. Okay, the next one, working memory. This is holding information in mind and mentally working with it. So we know that working memory is critical for making sense of anything that unfolds over time. And that always requires holding in mind what happened earlier and relating it to what is to come later. And that's necessary for making sense of written and spoken language, whether it's a sentence, a paragraph, or a book. Doing any math in your head requires working memory, as does reordering items, such as a to-do list, translating instructions into an action plan, incorporating new information into our thinking, mentally relating information to derive like a main idea or see connections. And sometimes called verbal working memory, nonverbal working memory. However, working memory is not the same as short-term memory. So short-term memory only stores information instead of keeping it in mind and working with it. So I'm going to pause there. And working memory and short-term memory, those involve different parts of the brain and show up differently developmentally. Okay, so third one, cognitive flexibility. Oof. Changing perspectives or approaches to a problem, flexibility, adjusting to new demands or rules or priorities, and in switching between tasks. So this is sometimes called flexible thinking, changing perspectives spatially, changing perspectives interpersonally, thinking outside the box. Cognitive flexibility involves being flexible enough to adjust to change demands or priorities, to admit that we were wrong, to understand unexpected opportunities. And when a student isn't grasping a concept, we often blame the student. If only the student would understand what I'm trying to teach, if only they could have done their homework and they would have understood this concept. We can use our cognitive flexibility and consider a different perspective. What might I, the grown-up, the adult, the teacher, do differently? How can I present the material in a different way or word the question differently so that my student can succeed? So there's also so much flexibility so much overlap between cognitive flexibility and creativity, task switching, and set shifting. It's the opposite of rigidity. So I want you to think about what that might look like for a student. I remember changing the schedule and having math. We had all of this PD on math, and we were told math is always at the end of the day, after lunch, after recess. Students are tired and wonder what that would look like. So all of us changed math into the morning, and students had their mind blown. What is happening? We always have math after lunch. Math is never in the morning. Math is always when we come back into the classroom. Those young people are still working on that ability to change their approach, to change their perspective. Yep, Nicole says authors or characters' point of views can be so challenging. Absolutely. Okay, so these three core executive functions that I just gave you a very brief overview on build to create more complex skills: problem solving, organizing, prioritizing, reasoning. And we think that being organized is such an important part of being in school and being a learner, but I want to note that executive functions are more than just being organized. The core executive functions, cognitive flexibility, working memory, inhibitory control, they're intertwined and they work together in the brain and in our behavior. These skills are combined and are built to accomplish higher order executive functioning skills. So now that I've given you a brief overview, I'm going to pause and see if there are any questions. We're going to get into it. We're going to dive in, do some executive functioning work together. Any questions before I move on? Or not move on, dive deeper? Corrections in the chat if anything comes up. So we're going to explore what these core components of executive functions look like in action through some classic executive function tasks. So if possible, turn your screen on. I'm going to ask for some participation at 3:49 p.m. on a Monday. So for each task, we're going to complete an activity to test out our own executive functions. And then you'll have the opportunity to reflect on how you used your skills, inhibitory control, working memory, cognitive flexibility. You're not going to be graded, just participation. Ready? Okay. Say the color, not the word. You could come off of mute. We can all do this together. We're a small group. So take your mute off. Ready? Okay, say the color, not the word.
Green.
Red.
Ooh, see, we're working on it.
Green.
Green. Okay, here we go. Say the color, not the word.
Purple.
Purple.
But just think about it, didn't we? Here we go.
Red.
Red.
Green.
Green.
Red.
Green.
Green.
You say the color, not the word.
Blue.
It takes us a
Blue.
second. Say the color, not the word.
Orange.
Orange.
Say the color, not the word.
Red.
Red.
I've done this so many times and I literally am like bullet red.
Purple.
Purple.
Oh,
Pink.
Blue.
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 Okay, so how did we use our executive functions in this task? And stay off of mute. Who has any thoughts?
I'll go. Well, you have to be thinking of two things at once. You have to be reading the word and recognizing it, and also recognizing the color and saying the color.
Your brain has to inhibit you from saying the word while you focus on the color. This really tests our inhibitory control. Ready for another one? So in this task, you're going to see a set of numbers on the screen. After they disappear, your job is to repeat the numbers in ascending order. I'm really putting you all to work at almost 4 p.m. We've got this ascending order. You can stay off of mute so we can just say it.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Because I was trying to do this earlier. Do you mean by
Yes.
ascending that I have to look at what numbers there are and rearrange them into ascending order? Okay,
Correct.
Okay.
And then say that sequence.
got it.
Anyone want to try?
3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9.
There you go. Okay, let's try it again. Anyone else want to try?
1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9.
You got it. You got it. How did we use our executive functions in that task? Those are the 3 core executive functions. What do you think that tested?
It's okay to guess. You only have a 1 in 3 chance of getting it wrong or right.
The inhibitory control.
That's the one we just did that was not
Hmm.
saying the
Well,
word, it was saying the
got-
color. What do you think about this one? So this one tests our working memory. Our brain has to do 2 things. Hold those numbers in our mind and then work with them by putting them in ascending order. So the last one. So in this task, we're going to be asked to sort the playing cards on the screen into groups using any rule. So you're going to see multiple cards and try to make groups. And then I'll ask 1 or 2 people to say how they group them. Here we go.
Hello. Speaking. Hey, Sarah.
Does anyone want to share
Stars.
how they would group the cards here?
By colors.
Colors is one. Yep. Anyone else?
By stars.
Yep.
By shape. Shape, yeah. I just
Yeah.
like it.
By, I was gonna say by numbers.
Mm.
You could do those that have 1, those that have more than 1.
More than, less than.
Yeah. And so we can sort these in a different way. So maybe you did color the first time, you did numbers the next time, did it again. You could find a different pattern. What's a different pattern that hasn't been brought up? Different way to sort.
Shapes.
Shapes.
If they're arranged like vertically or
Any sides. What about how
Yes.
many sides they have?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So this is the Wisconsin, called the Wisconsin card sorting task. And it's designed to test our cognitive flexibility. So our brain comes up with a rule to sort the cards, and then we find a different rule to sort the same set of cards, and then we are flexible and try a new way to sort the cards. So we've just used all 3 of our core executive functions. Gretchen is going to share a link to this executive function self-assessment. We want you to take a few minutes and complete this for yourself. And then we're going to share out whole group what you noticed about your own executive functions. So we just did 3 different tasks and we tested 3 of our different core executive functions. Now we're going to reflect on our own executive functions. This is called the executive functions self-assessment. In the chat, I'll put some music on and give you about 3 minutes to assess yourself. And then we'll talk about it. for self-assessment. Okay, come on back. Who wants to share something they noticed about themselves, either at work or school or at home? I can start sharing my thought. Sitting still and not fidgeting during a longer task like a meeting.
Like this.
Often challenging. I have to get up. I have to move my body. Now that I've been working from home for several years and how often I have to move or drink water, get something, I think back to all those years that I was a teacher and how long I had students sit in their chairs. And I think I can't even do it for a 1 hour meeting. How did I expect children to do it all day long? Anybody else want to share what they noticed? It's a safe, judgment-free zone.
I share that one for sure, but I was looking at this and I feel like a lot of it I would write challenging, like sometimes, often, or always, but it's because I don't get to control the distractions or be able to focus on things without constantly being interrupted. So I don't know if it's like chicken or egg, but yeah, it's all challenging. But I feel like if I can close my door and no one's going to interrupt me, I can get it all handled.
Yes.
That's just
Same.
not healthy. In fact, I have to leave soon. I have to leave early. Gotta go do some stuff. So getting started, not challenging.
What about resisting distractions?
I'm terrible at that.
What's distracting?
Everything. I get distracted by like a
I
long.
find it more, some things is more easier at home.
I didn't even read.
It varies. It can be more easier at work, some things. And some things are more easier at home, but depending on the task.
Yeah, totally. Anyone else?
I was saying I was so distracted. I didn't even read that one was at work or school and one was at home. So
No, you were trying to do all the things. You were trying to do all the things.
just checking off the list. checkbox. But I was like, I answered this.
I know at work, I'll be like, okay, I'll get to that email. I'll get to the email. But at home, if I like walk by the dishes, I'm like, no, I cannot leave those dishes there. Like I have to do those dishes before I do the next thing, or I literally will not be able to do anything. But then that email will be there and someone's like, hey, I sent you that email 4 days ago. I needed a response. And like, yes, I know. Okay, so think about those students that we identified at the beginning of this. And take a second and think about their executive function skills. What would you rate them here at these things for school? What does that look like for them? So challenging, yeah, probably usually challenging. I was thinking- Go ahead, Diana.
I think we sometimes will say, this is the way they are at school, this is the way they are at home.
Yeah. Those of us that are parents, do you act like that for your teacher at school? I was thinking about the students that I remembered and thinking that some of this also depends on subject. Like there could be a subject that they're very passionate about and they may be able to sit, still without getting distracted because they're so engaged and passionate about the subject. Or vice versa, there may be a subject where they have struggled for maybe years. And they're like, oh no, that's gonna be science time. I know that when it's science.
But then it goes back as well, age, how old they are, because you're like,
Can you say that one more time? You cut out a little bit.
that also depends on their age. Their age that they're at, because as they continue to grow, they start to develop more
Like they have more practice with these skills, right?
I know there was another word, but yeah.
Yeah, they have more practice building up these executive function skills. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, let's keep going. So we've talked about executive functions. And what does that look like for literacy? What does that mean, literacy? So remember, executive functions are part of these larger set of holistic skills that our students need to be successful at school and life. And for literacy, they're critical. They're intertwined with reading and writing skills on a neurobiological level and based on what we see in our students. So here we have Scarborough's rope. You see word recognition is at the bottom, language comprehension is at the top, all of those different components. And you see executive function is intertwined. The Scarborough's rope is this model for literacy development. And in this updated version, you see how researchers have added executive functions because of its important role in supporting and moderating reading development, alongside with all of the components that we see in language comprehension and word recognition. Gretchen, can you read this for us, please?
I sure can. Executive functions in literacy. In short, reading equals hard mental work. Executive function integrates and synchronizes the many sub-processes involved in reading, such as phonological and orthographic aspects of word identification, retrieval of word meanings, and concepts from long-term memory, and integration of prior knowledge with new information. Executive functioning is also involved when we deploy strategies to pace our reading appropriately, not too fast, not too slow, monitor comprehension, and repair comprehension breakdowns. That last one really gets to me. I feel like I spend a lot of time rereading things to repair my comprehension breakdowns.
Thanks so much, Gretchen. So reading is hard work, as all of us educators know. And when we think just of executive functions, these are all of the things that are happening in our young people's brains when we're asking them to read, when we're asking them to develop these really important, tough, challenging, beautiful literacy skills. So here's what executive function might look like, how it can affect students' abilities. Look at the interconnections, look at the interdependencies between executive function skills and literacy skills. Recognizing letters, connecting sounds, being able to sound out words, but then also monitoring for errors, disregarding information that's irrelevant, planning how we're going to read a text, completing our literacy assignments, shifting from one activity to another. There's so many. So how will we use this executive functions lens to support our students' literacy? So we're going to watch this video for 5 minutes, and then we're going to talk about it. So let's just watch and think about what we've learned so far today about executive functions.
I'm a word master. What? One more time. I'm a word master. What? Yesterday, we learned 2 new sounds. E, repeat. E. And A, repeat. A. Let's look at how they're spelled on our chart. E like B. E like B. A like snake. A like snake. Today, the focus was on the long I sound. So we'd already learned long E, and the spelling for that is EE, and we'd already learned long A, and the spelling for that is AE. And we talk about that as magic E, like it's making I different, because we also know all our short vowels already from kindergarten. So it's challenging in that it's new sounds and new spellings. And this was the first time today that they were doing IE. Today we're gonna learn a new magic E sound. Just like E makes A say its own name, it's A when they're in a team. This magic E sound is I. Repeat. I. We're gonna learn how to spell it in a moment, but first I want you to hear it. When I say I, watch my mouth first, and then you're gonna make it and pay attention to what your mouth is doing. I. Repeat. I. Silent hand, what happens to your mouth? One friend knows, 2 friends know. We can do it one more time. I. Repeat. I. I'm gonna read you some words, and you're gonna vote yes, thumbs up, I hear the I sounds, my mouth is smiling, or no, I don't hear the I sounds, my mouth is not smiling. Say. Say. Thumbs up or down. Ooh, try it again. Say. Do you hear the I sound? 1, 2, 3, vote. Correct, 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 correct. S-e-y. It's not sigh. What about ice? Repeat. Ice. 1, 2, 3, vote. Do you hear the I sound? Correct, 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 correct. Try cat.
Okay, we're gonna pause there. Since we're a small group, want us to share out how are students using their executive functions in this video. Nicole has already said their cognitive flexibility, their new ways to spell a sound. So we know that it can make a short vowel sound, a long vowel sound. How are they using their working memory, and how are they using their inhibitory control? No wrong answers here. We're all learning together.
Well, with their working memory, she said they had learned some of the other vowel sounds and they're kind of building on their previous knowledge.
Yep, absolutely. Beautiful. And what about their inhibitory control? Go ahead. Yeah.
They're attending to tasks, they're sitting, they're paying attention.
Think about all the things that first graders can be doing, like things that are so exciting. A friend next to them, their own new shoes, maybe their shoe isn't tied, maybe their tummy is growling because they're hungry. They heard a bell outside. So many distractions that they have to tend to and use that control to focus on the task at hand. So many things. Yep. Okay, so here are some resources we want to share with you that Gretchen is putting in the chat. So we're thinking about those students that we have brought to the top of our mind at the beginning of this session. And here are some tools that we have that will help you do your own thing. So this is called the executive functions observation. So you can pick a student, maybe a small group that you work with, maybe a teacher you support, a student that they have. In this observation tool, you'll look at what the student is being asked to do. What are the tasks? What are the expectations? What supports are in place? What are the instructional moves? What tools are there? What is happening in that environment? Who's there? What's the time of day? What does this classroom space look like? And how is the student doing with their executive functions, their working memory, their inhibition, their cognitive flexibility? So you'll observe this student and you'll answer these questions while you're observing them. And then we have this executive function and literacy strategy bank. I believe these are all in the chat. So this is a menu of options that you can work to include to build those students' executive function skills. So we know that students come in with us with all different levels, experiences, and we can scaffold executive function skills just like how we scaffold fluency or decoding. There are opportunities to practice these skills within literacy instruction. An example you can choose is checking for understanding for directions. So if you are giving directions, especially if they're new, you can ask 1 or 2 students to repeat them back to the class. These seem like a really big task. Okay, how do I build my students' executive functions? That seems like so much. But here are these like micro movements, these small things that you can do to scaffold. So we have these available for you. So we have that self-assessment, we have that student observation tool, and now we have this literacy strategy bank. Any questions there? So today, you've reflected on your own executive functions. You've learned about the 3 core executive functions. You've observed a class and what that looks like during literacy. And now you have an observation tool to use for a student of your own or a small group. And you have this literacy strategy bank. So we've done a lot in under an hour for an afternoon in September. So we're going to close today. Thank you all so much for being here. We're going to be sending a follow-up email. It'll have this session recording. It'll have this 1-pager that you see up here. It'll have the key learnings from today, the resources, the links to the slide and recording. Here's our next workshop that's in February on executive functions. That'll be coming to you. And finally, we have a feedback survey. It'll take you just a second. I'll put it in the chat now. Just let us know what you liked about the session, what we could do better. Share the recording with your colleagues. We hope to support as many of you. We know incredible work is happening in California with literacy. We are here to support. And we have some upcoming opportunities. Julie, anything you want to say about these incredible workshops coming up?
I would just
share
say,
the flyer in the chat.
Thank you, Jasmine. I would just say that if any of these are interesting, please hop on. Even in 45 minutes, you'll get some new tools and some new ideas and ways of thinking about your practices. So please register today so that you have access to all the resources and you get updates about the workshops, and we keep you in our communication loop.
Perfect.
Thank you.
And like the young people are saying, like and share Project Arise on our socials. We're on Facebook, X, LinkedIn, Instagram. There's going to be a raffle for some book giveaways. So feel free to get on there and share, like and subscribe. Is that what they're saying these days? And with our remaining time, Nicole, Melanie, Julie, and myself will be here to answer any questions about Project Arise, our courses, executive functions. But thank you all so much for being here today. We know that your time is so precious, and we thank you for being a learner in this space. We hope you have a beautiful afternoon and rest of your week. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. It went super quick.